There's a trait that exists in the world that is far more terrifying than simple cruelty, infinitely more dangerous than raw genius, and 100 times more powerful than inherited wealth. It's fearlessness. But I'm not talking about the kind you see in movies, the loud, chest-thumping warrior or the reckless fool who dives headfirst into danger. No, I'm talking about a different kind of fearlessness. A cold, quiet, calculating kind. It's the kind you find in people who have systematically burned every bridge behind them, who have silenced every last flicker of hesitation in their minds, and who have buried their conscience deep underground, all in the name of achieving their goals. This is the kind of fearlessness that Machiavelli didn't just write about. He revered it. It's the quality that makes kings and CEOs sleep with one eye open. It's the invisible force that can turn a low-level assistant into a shadow ruler, pulling the strings while the person in charge remains completely oblivious. This isn't about being brave. Bravery is feeling fear and acting anyway. This is about something far more profound: numbness. It's the state you reach when you no longer fear failure, you no longer fear betrayal, you no longer fear loss, and you certainly no longer fear death. You become untouchable, not because you have bodyguards or a fortress, but because there is literally nothing left for anyone to take from you. Think about it. Most people are governed by a complex web of fears. The fear of being disliked, of being replaced at their job, of having their secrets exposed, of being seen as a failure. Their entire lives are a dance, carefully choreographed to avoid these outcomes. But the truly powerful, the ones who shape the world, they've moved past that. They don't feel that anxiety. They don't hesitate. They calculate, they position, and then they strike. And when fear finally dies inside a person, something else, something much darker and more potent, rises up to take its place. Absolute control. In this video, we're going to dissect exactly why this specific brand of fearlessness is the deadliest weapon in the entire Machiavellian arsenal. We'll explore how the people who master it don't just win their little games, they dominate the entire board. The hard truth is, most people don't truly live. They just survive, lurching from one fearful decision to the next. Fear is the invisible chain that keeps the masses in line. It's the reason why good people follow weak leaders. It's why soldiers hesitate for a fatal second in battle. It's why you stay silent in a meeting when you know you should speak up, why you obey a rule you know is unjust, and why you crawl when every fiber of your being is telling you to strike. You have to understand, fear isn't just a feeling that pops up now and then. It's a system. It's a hierarchy. And if you don't find a way to climb to the top of it and master it, you will live and die as a pawn in someone else's game. Machiavelli understood this on a level that most people can't even comprehend. He didn't write poetry about fear or romanticize it. He studied it like a scientist. He put it under a microscope, dissected it, and laid its mechanics bare for all to see. He knew that fear is the primary lever that rulers use to control their subjects, and more importantly, it's the mechanism by which weak-minded people voluntarily surrender their own power. Just look at the modern world. Our entire society runs on a constant hum of fear. The fear of being canceled, the fear of going broke, the fear of being rejected by a potential partner, the fear of standing alone against the crowd. Let's be honest with ourselves. You don't really make your own decisions. Your fear makes them for you. You don't chase your biggest goals with everything you have. You negotiate with your own insecurity, settling for a smaller, safer version of what you want. Nearly every move you make, every single day, is a subconscious attempt to escape discomfort. And right there, in that simple truth, lies the secret. The first step to becoming genuinely powerful isn't to gain more confidence or to read more books. It is to systematically kill your fear. You have to treat it like an enemy combatant. You have to hunt it down, corner it, and eliminate it from your operating system. Because as long as fear is alive and breathing inside of you, true power can never take root. You cannot be feared by others until you, yourself, feel nothing. And you don't conquer a force like this by avoiding it. You don't win by meditating it away, or with breathing exercises, or by repeating positive affirmations in the mirror. That's weakness dressing itself up as wisdom. Machiavelli would have laughed at such a soft approach. He didn't believe in taming fear. He believed in either turning fear into a weapon you could use against others or eliminating it from your own psyche entirely. So how do you actually do it? How do you kill fear? Not with courage, but with cold, hard calculation. Fear thrives in the fog of uncertainty. It grows in the shadows of the unknown. It feeds on emotion. It loves chaos. So the very first step in this Machiavellian transformation is to drag your fear out of the shadows and into the light. You have to turn it into data. You have to make it something that can be pinned down, dissected, studied, and ultimately used. From now on, every time you feel that cold grip of fear, that knot in your stomach, I want you to stop and ask yourself a very specific question. What precisely am I afraid of right now? Don't accept a vague answer like failure. Break it down. Is it the loss of money? If so, how much? Is it the loss of reputation? With whom, specifically? Is it the loss of comfort or status? Strip away the emotional drama and get to the raw data. When you do this consistently, you'll start to notice something fascinating. Fear is rarely about the reality of the situation. It's almost always about your ego. You're not actually afraid of losing the game. You're afraid of looking like a loser. You're not really afraid of rejection. You're afraid that your carefully constructed self-image might crack. You're not afraid of danger itself. You're afraid of how you'll be perceived by others after you fail to navigate that danger successfully. That isn't true fear. That's vanity. And vanity, unlike true fear, is very easy to kill once you make the conscious decision to stop giving a damn about what other people think. Machiavelli knew this centuries ago. A man who is ruled by the opinions of others is a man who is already conquered. He doesn't even need an enemy. His desperate desire to be liked will be his enslaver for his entire life. So what's the first practical step in this transformation? You must crush your addiction to approval. Completely. Stop apologizing for your ambition. Stop softening your voice or your opinions to be more accepted in a group. Stop asking for permission to be dangerous. The moment you stop fearing disapproval, you unlock the most liberating and terrifying power of all: true freedom. The freedom to act without a second of hesitation. The freedom to speak your mind without a filter. The freedom to execute a plan without feeling a shred of guilt. Now, let's go a level deeper. Step 2 on this path is to expose yourself to controlled confrontation. Fear lives and breeds in comfort. So if you truly want to kill it, you have to deliberately hunt discomfort. You have to make it a practice. You don't have to start by picking a fight with your boss. Start small. The next time you're in a situation where you're afraid to speak, speak. The next time you're in a group where everyone agrees, and you don't, be the one to disagree. Take small, calculated actions every single day that challenge your default setting of comfort and conformity. You have to build the habit of attacking the things that frighten you before they have a chance to grow and attack you. Machiavelli understood this principle perfectly. He knew that small, private rebellions harden the spirit. Small, calculated risks prepare the mind for larger conquests. Think about it. If you can't even handle the social pressure of a weekly team meeting, how in the world are you going to survive the fire of high-stakes politics and inevitable betrayal? Fear dies when you bleed in training. So, you must train. And you must train in a way that forces you to face the very thing you want to eliminate. Now for the third step, and this one is brutal, but it is absolutely essential. Step 3. You must detach from the outcome. Fear gets its power over you because you are desperately attached to a specific result. You need the business to succeed. You need to win her love. You need to get that respect and that status. The thought of losing it, of things not going your way, is what paralyzes you. This attachment is your single greatest weakness. It's what makes you predictable. It's what your rivals and enemies will use to manipulate you. But what happens when you truly detach? What happens when you can look at your greatest ambition and honestly say to yourself, I will give this everything I have, but if I lose it all, I will be unchanged. You become a paradox, and this paradox is what terrifies ordinary people. The man who can lose everything and remain perfectly calm, perfectly centered, that man cannot be controlled. That is the source of real influence. If you cannot be rattled, you cannot be manipulated. If your emotions cannot be baited, you cannot be trapped. If you cannot be threatened with loss, you become, for all intents and purposes, untouchable. That is power. And this brings us to the final step of the internal transformation, the Machiavellian finishing move. Step 4. You weaponize your own lack of fear. Once you've successfully killed fear inside yourself, you begin to see it everywhere else. You see how it drives the people around you, and you start using their fear as a tool. You become unpredictable. You start acting with a speed and decisiveness that makes people uncomfortable. You don't show mercy when it's not strategically sound. And because of this, people begin to fear you. They fear your silence. They fear your sudden movements. They fear your calm presence, because they subconsciously realize that you are not playing by the same set of rules as they are. They can sense that you don't care about their emotional appeals, that you don't respond to their social pressure, and that you don't flinch when you are challenged. You only move when it is strategic. You see, Machiavelli didn't admire cruelty just for the sake of being cruel. He admired control. And absolute fearlessness is the bedrock of absolute control. Imagine for a moment walking into any room, a boardroom, a negotiation, a family gathering, and knowing with 100% certainty that no one in that room can shake you. Imagine making a high-stakes decision with zero doubt, because you've already walked through the worst-case scenario in your mind and decided that it simply doesn't matter. Imagine confronting your greatest enemy, looking them in the eye, and feeling absolutely nothing. That is the person Machiavelli was writing for. Not the good man, not the cautious man, but the man who feels nothing when it's time to act. The man who doesn't flinch because fear, for him, is already dead. And once fear is dead, you become something far more terrifying than brave. You become inevitable. Once that fear inside you dies, a vacuum is created. Something else must rush in to take its place. And for the truly powerful, that replacement is a cold, calculated ruthlessness. Because without fear, you no longer hesitate. Without hesitation, you act. And when you act without hesitation, you realize that mercy is a luxury, a weakness you often cannot afford. Machiavelli put it very clearly. It is much safer to be feared than loved. But he didn't just leave it at that. He explained why. He showed us that mercy, when used at the wrong time or on the wrong person, is strategic suicide. Let's be clear. Mercy is a concept praised almost exclusively by those who are too weak to be dangerous. The masses cry out for kindness and forgiveness, not because they are virtuous, but because they hope it will shield them from the consequences of their own actions, from the justice they know they probably deserve. But the ruler, the strategist, the player in the great game of power, he does not grant mercy because it feels good in his heart. He grants it only when it serves a strategic purpose, and when it doesn't, he removes the problem completely. After you've killed the fear within yourself, you will be tempted. The ghost of your old self will whisper to you, telling you to go back to your old habits, to give someone a second chance they haven't earned, to delay a punishment because it feels uncomfortable, to explain your actions to people whose opinions are utterly irrelevant. You must recognize this as the residue from your old, fearful programming, and you must burn it away. The fearless man has to learn the next law of power. Never hesitate to destroy that which threatens you. When someone undermines your position, tarnishes your reputation, leaks your plans, or openly disrespects your authority, your response cannot be emotional. It must be elimination. It should be quiet, total, and final. This isn't about being a cruel person. This is about strategy. Power is not sustained by being liked. It is sustained by being untouchable. And untouchable men and women do not play defense. They identify liabilities, and they remove them long before they can grow into existential threats. Let's break this down, Machiavelli style. First, showing mercy at the wrong time makes you look uncertain. When you spare someone who clearly deserved punishment, it sends a signal to everyone else watching. The signal is that you lack resolve, that your decisions can be swayed by emotion, that you feel guilt. And the moment people sense guilt in a powerful person, they will press on it like a fresh bruise, trying to see how much they can get away with. Second, misplaced mercy actively invites betrayal. The person you spare will very rarely thank you. Instead, they will see your forgiveness as a sign of softness. It confirms to them that you're not as dangerous as they thought, and they will simply wait for the next, better opportunity to strike again. Machiavelli warned about this explicitly. He observed that the people who benefit most from your mercy often become the ones who most deeply resent your power over them. And third, mercy often just delays the inevitable. The problem you refuse to deal with today will almost certainly return tomorrow. Only this time it will be stronger, more entrenched, and it will cost you far more to eliminate it later. Weakness compounds over time, just like interest. A delay in decisive action multiplies the eventual destruction. You have to burn this into your mind. The fearful man shows mercy to make himself feel safe in the moment. The fearless man shows no mercy because his safety is already guaranteed by his willingness to act. So let the others cry for justice. Let them call you cruel. Let them paint you as the villain in their story. So be it. They can have their moral victories while you have actual ones. They don't understand the game. They don't realize that power isn't preserved through fairness. It's preserved through absolute control, and control requires strategic ruthlessness, not constant chaotic violence but surgical brutality, cold, precise, and necessary. You don't punish people out of anger. You do it out of necessity. You amputate a finger to save the hand. You remove a single traitor before they can infect your entire inner circle. This is the lesson Machiavelli learned from watching Cesare Borgia. When Borgia needed to pacify a rebellious region, he sent in his most brutal enforcer, Ramiro de Orca, to crush the opposition and instill fear. De Orca did his job with horrifying efficiency. But once the order was restored, and de Orca himself was becoming too feared and powerful, what did Borgia do? He had him cut in half and left in the public square. In one move, he had restored order, eliminated a future rival, and appeared as a just savior to the people. That is ruthless brilliance, and that is the path. Fearlessness isn't about taking stupid risks. It's about being willing to do what the cowards in the room won't. It's about enforcing your will with precision, not emotion. It's about eliminating risk, not just reacting to it. When people learn that you are capable of making final decisions, they stop testing you. They stop pushing your boundaries. They start respecting the chilling silence behind your smile, because they know that when the moment comes, you won't flinch. You won't forgive. You will finish the job, and that is what separates the powerful from the powerless. Not how many chances they give, but how few. To fear nothing means one thing above all else. You will learn to walk alone. Not because you'll be hated or misunderstood, though you will be, but because the truly fearless person has no fundamental need for other people. And to the average person, who is bound by 1,000 social threads, that is the most terrifying thing of all. They'll call you cold. They'll call you arrogant, emotionless. They'll look at you and say, "You've changed," or "You've become so distant and uncaring." But what they're really saying is this: you stopped depending on us, and now we don't know how to control you anymore. Fearlessness comes with a price, and that price is a profound sense of isolation. When you no longer seek approval from the group, you naturally stop blending in with it. When you no longer crave the security of the herd, you become a threat to those who can only survive within it. And when you no longer fear the silence of being alone, you become psychologically untouchable. Machiavelli knew this cost intimately. He was exiled, slandered, and ultimately abandoned by the very princes he once advised. But he didn't break. Why? Because for a fearless man, solitude is not a punishment. It's a sharpening stone. The weak seek out crowds to drown out their own anxieties. The strong learn to build things in silence. But the truly powerful, they seem to disappear entirely, building their empires while remaining unseen. You have to understand this fundamental truth. Fear is the social glue that binds most people together. It's the reason they gossip, the reason they form petty alliances, the reason they cling to traditions. They are all united by a shared, mutual insecurity. Every single one of them is terrified of being excluded, of being replaced, or of being forgotten. But when you kill fear in yourself, you short-circuit that entire system. You no longer need the tribe to feel validated. You no longer need constant company to feel strong. You no longer fear being left behind, because you have consciously chosen a path that by definition leaves everyone else behind. This is the beginning of true dominance. It isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being the most untethered. It's about methodically severing the psychological chains that bind everyone else. The fear of abandonment, the fear of being misunderstood, the fear of what you might find in the silence of your own thoughts. You have to face this now. Complete detachment is not a comfortable state of being, but comfort is for cattle. Power demands an edge. Ask yourself, Why do so many strong leaders eventually fall? They get comfortable. They surround themselves with yes men, with dependents, with people who praise them, and that comfort slowly rots their judgment from the inside out. Machiavelli warned against this. He said a ruler must always keep his circle small, his trust limited, and his mind entirely his own. The moment you begin to rely on others for your strength, you have handed them the very knife they will one day use to stab you. The fearless man doesn't beg for loyalty. He doesn't chase companionship. He doesn't pine for love or validation. He commands respect through his silence, through his results, and through his distance. And it is that distance that people fear the most. They will try to guilt you back into the fold. They'll tell you you're disconnected, that you've lost your humanity. Good. Let them say it. Their criticism is confirmation that you are no longer playing by their rules. You're not in this world to be liked. You're here to be remembered. And the figures who are remembered for centuries were rarely surrounded by applause while they were on the rise. You rise in silence. You conquer alone. Think of the titans of history. Napoleon, feared and ultimately alone. Julius Caesar, betrayed by those he called his friends. Machiavelli himself, writing the blueprints of power while in lonely exile, mocked by the world. That solitude, that exile, it wasn't their downfall. It was their forge. It created clarity. It bred ruthlessness. It perfected their mastery. If you want this kind of power, you must choose this path. Not just once, but every single day. You will eat meals alone to think. You will make decisions that isolate you from the consensus. You will break alliances the moment they cease to serve your purpose. You will walk out of rooms filled with cowards. You will cut ties without offering an apology. Because fearlessness demands absolute focus, and focus demands distance. Only then will your vision be clear. Only then will you act without delay. Only then will you be able to do what the fearful masses cannot: lead without needing a single follower. So when that feeling of loneliness creeps in, when the silence feels heavy, do not retreat. Do not run back to the warmth and comfort of the herd. Welcome it. Because that silence is the echo of your own evolution. It is the sound of fear leaving your body and power taking its place. The price of fearlessness is solitude, but the reward is absolute freedom. You've killed your fear. You've accepted your isolation. You no longer flinch. You no longer apologize. You no longer hesitate. Now, you enter the final and most dangerous phase. You become the fear. Because the moment you feel nothing, you begin to sense everything that others feel. You can see their anxieties, their insecurities, their vanities, and you learn to use it all against them. This is where power doesn't just add up, it multiplies. This is the moment where Machiavelli smiles at you from the shadows. You must understand, fear is the most effective and efficient weapon ever invented. You don't need a sword when a strategic silence will do the job. You don't need to attack when your opponent will paralyze themselves with their own anxiety in your presence. If you learn how to craft it, fear does your work for you. Machiavelli didn't just study fear. He taught leaders how to engineer it. He knew that people respond more viscerally to potential pain than to actual violence. They fear unpredictability. They fear mystery. They fear what they cannot calculate, and that becomes your new role. You are no longer just a person. You are a mirror in which other people see their own weakness reflected back at them. So how do you wield this weapon? Step 1. Become completely unreadable. Predictable men are manageable men. You must become a black box. Smile less. Speak less. Reveal nothing of your true thoughts or intentions. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let them fill in the silent blanks with their own paranoia. Make sure that the little you do reveal carries immense, deliberate weight. The instant people can no longer predict your next move, they stop feeling safe around you. And when people don't feel safe, they become obedient. Step 2. Broadcast power, never emotion. Weak men broadcast their feelings, their anger, their joy, their frustration. Strong men broadcast consequences. When you walk into a room, people should feel a shift in the tension, not a wave of comfort. Not because you're loud or aggressive, but because you carry yourself like a person who does not play games. Make your very presence a warning. The way you walk, the way you sit, the way you hold eye contact. Everything must signal. I see everything, I miss nothing, and I feel nothing. That is how tyrants rule nations without ever raising their voice. It's how kings win battles before they even begin. Step 3. Use their specific fears to control outcomes. Once you understand what an individual fears, the fear of exclusion, the fear of public embarrassment, the fear of being replaced, you can use that knowledge as a lever. Mention things indirectly. Let them feel the heat without ever seeing the fire. Let them agonize over what might happen if they cross you. In that ambiguity, you gain immense power. People don't follow strength. They follow what they are afraid of losing. So don't threaten them directly. Imply. Let your silence carry the unspoken question. What do you think happens if I decide you're a problem? Their own behavior will soon provide the answer. And finally, step 4. Make an example. Eventually, someone will test you. Someone bolder or more foolish than the rest always does. When that moment comes, do not warn them. Do not explain yourself. Destroy them. Make it public, make it fast, and make it final. Let everyone else watch. Let them feel their own pulse quicken as they witness the result. Let them realize with a chilling certainty that you do not bluff. That is how you turn fear from a simple feeling into a system of control. You create a new hierarchy, and people fall in line. Not because you asked them to, but because they now know exactly what happens if they don't. This isn't about cruelty, it's about control. And here is your reality now. You have no fear, but they are full of it. And their fear is your currency, your weapon, and your armor. The truly powerful don't just endure pain, they understand how to manufacture it for others. They don't flinch. They make others flinch first. And that is the final evolution. You don't just fear nothing, you become the thing that they all fear. If this message struck a chord, if it stirred something cold and ambitious deep inside you, then subscribe. This channel is not about motivation. It's not therapy. It is the cold, hard blueprint for total control, for those who refuse to live and die as pawns. Welcome to the darker side of strength.